Hey guys, welcome to our presentation. We're here to talk about the legendary Battle of Stalingrad and explain why it was such an important battle in World War II. I'll be doing the talking while Liam will be providing you with the pretty pictures. Without further ado, let's get right to it. Stalingrad. The name might ring a bell for some of you, as it was one of the deciding factors that led to Germany losing the war, and therefore very important. Pretty well known too, as there have been many documentaries, books and songs made covering this historic showdown. Before we dive into it though, let's give a quick recap of the previous major events of World War II. In 1939, Germany and Russia signed the Non-Aggression Nazi-Soviet Pact, which stated that Russia would not try to stand in Germany's way should they invade Poland, which they eventually did. It also secretly agreed that once Poland had been overrun, the two powers would divide it between them, so that Russia could get back some land it lost in 1921. Germany then goes on, doing their thing, invading Poland, Denmark, Norway and France among others. It also invades Great Britain, and Germany's air force, the Luftwaffe, the most technologically advanced single air force in the world at the time, bombs airfields in and around London, as well as London itself. Although the assault had failed to break the British defences, Hitler no longer saw Britain as a threat to him, so he set his sights on Russia yet again. For years, Hitler dreamed of invading Russia in order to secure more Lebensraum or living space for the German people. Now the time was right. Hitler never intended to honor the Nazi-Soviet Pact for long. Instead, he planned Operation Barbarossa, the largest military operation in history. We'll only skim over the details here because another group will go into that in more detail, so here are the most important things. Operation Barbarossa was in trouble before it even began. It was set to begin early May, but it had a delayed start, which meant that the Germans had less time to invade Russia before winter set in. In June, Germany attacked Russia and took the Soviets by surprise, took back the land they had given Russia after conquering Poland and quite a bit more, working their way towards Moscow. As winter set in, the Soviets prepared a large counteroffensive, but Hitler ordered his armies to hold their ground at all costs, which slowed down the Soviet advance. Then, in the summer of 1942, the Germans were on the offensive again because they had received Italian, Romanian and Hungarian reinforcements. Initially, they had planned to capture strategic oil fields in the northern Caucasus region. The armies would split in two, with half heading towards the oil fields and the other half heading into the Kursk region in order to protect the left flank of the other force. Then Hitler made the mistake that would turn the tide of the war in favor of the Allies. He set his eyes on the town of Stalingrad. As the invasion of Russia went on, Hitler developed an increasing obsession with this town, which lay close to the river Volga. It was important, to a degree, serving as Russia's center of communications in the south, and in that if the Germans took it, they could cut oil supply from the Caucasus to elsewhere in Russia, and it would slow down production of many goods vital to the Russians. Hitler, however, wanted it for another reason. Stalingrad bore the name of the leader of the Soviet Union, Joseph Stalin. Hitler hated Stalin, and if he could take this town, it would deliver a devastating moral blow to the Soviets, which is why he wanted to take it so badly, and why Stalin was so determined to defend it. Therefore, Hitler changed the army tactics. Sending only a small amount of forces to the oil fields, he diverted a large amount of troops towards the city. The bloodbath that followed was to become known as the Battle of Stalingrad. The Germans began their assault on Stalingrad on the 7th of July 1942. The Luftwaffe began bombing the city and Soviet shipping along the Volga River, destroying 40 ships. During the summer and autumn of that year, the Germans dropped 1,000 tons of bombs on Stalingrad. Then, in late August, the German infantry reached the bank of the Volga River, just north of Stalingrad. They outmatched the Soviets, as you can see from this table. The Germans had well over 100,000 more men. Attacking aggressively and pushing the Soviets out of the city, more death ensued. The Soviets were also fighting aggressively, taking back areas at night that the Germans had captured during the day. German troops actually held 90% of the city at times, but they still weren't able to push the Soviets out. Around November, both the Germans and the Soviets received reinforcements. They were quite evenly matched now. Both sides had over 1 million men and were quite evenly matched with their artillery, tanks and air forces. On the 19th of November, the Soviets launched a counteroffensive. They called it Operation Uranus. Yes, really. And the plan was to attack the weaker Hungarian and Romanian troops covering the Germans' flanks in order to encircle the German troops and trap them in the city as the cold Russian winter set in. In short, it was a success. When Adolf Hitler heard about this, he decided that instead of attempting to break out of the circle, he ordered his trapped army to remain in the city. He would instead resupply them by air. There was a slight problem with this, however. To supply the trapped forces with what they needed, they would require 700 tons of supplies every day. To make matters worse, the Luftwaffe were exhausted trying to maintain control of the skies, since the Soviets had brought in 800 more aircraft, and although they had assembled a fleet of 500 aircraft to bring in supplies, it was still insufficient. During December, the German armies received less than 20% of their daily requirements. The German general Erich von Manstein proposed a solution to all this. He was to organize a rescue operation called Operation Winterstorm. In short, it failed spectacularly. I won't go into much detail since we're already short on time, but here are some key points. General Manstein was originally promised 4 divisions, but only got 1. They caught the Soviets by surprise the first day and were aided by the Luftwaffe. However, the Soviets started resisting and progress was slow. When the Soviets started counterattacking, Manstein appealed to Hitler to start the breakout of the trapped army. Hitler refused. Without any more forces, Manstein had to call off the rescue mission within 2 weeks of its inception. As winter progressed, the German troops, originally around 300,000 when they were trapped in Stalingrad, were slowly starving to death. The Soviets were slowly but surely pushing them back towards the river Volga, and the Germans were fighting with the same ferocity the Soviets displayed when Germany was on the offensive. It was no use. On the 31st of January 1943, General Paulus, the commander of the German troops in Stalingrad, was forced to surrender. 91,000 Germans were taken prisoner. The remaining 200,000 had either starved to death during the winter or been killed by Soviets. Most starved to death. As a side note, of the 91,000 Germans taken prisoner, only 6,000 of them returned home to their families in 1955. In short, the Battle of Stalingrad had a huge impact on the Second World War. It was the turning point of the war that finally forced Germany to be on the defensive, and without a victory here for the Soviets, the Germans would have been a lot closer to winning the war. Both German and Soviet casualties were incredibly high. The average life expectancy of a Soviet private sent to the front was less than a day, and a Soviet officer was expected to live for only 3 days after being sent to the front. The battle has been marked as one of the bloodiest battles ever, paying special attention to brutality and disregard for military and civilian casualties. Both sides' losses reflect that. Different sources give different numbers, but most give figures of 1.5 to 2 million casualties combined, with over 1 million deaths. That means about 7,700 casualties every day. To put something like this into perspective, the total combined losses for the USA during the Second World War in both Europe and the Pacific was 416,000 service members. So there you have it, the Battle of Stalingrad. We hope you enjoyed our presentation, and we're sorry if we skimmed over some details, but there's only so much you can show in a short video. Anyway, thank you for paying attention to us, and we'll see you next time.